Hello, I'm going to walk you through the instructional template for Unit 3, which is going to be focusing on composition. You've studied composition in music, art, and drama, and you're going to apply the concept of composition in language arts, social studies, math, and science. So your job is to figure out, as we've had discussions that you watched in videos, how to utilize the concept of composition in language arts, math, science, and social studies. Language arts is relatively simple with any writing activity. Social studies, you can think of composition as the little elements that go together to make the whole. So an era, even a person, like the timeline of their life. You could use a timeline which would relate to the plot map and drama. Anything that you consider all those little events that go together that brought us to the Civil War or something like that. That's composition, or the whole era. What makes an era? Or a decade? What makes the 1970s? What events and special things happened in the 70s that make that era special? Math is relatively easy. Story problems, any kind of a sentence, math sentence, or the order of operations. Those are all involving composition. Science is easy as well. You could take the life cycle of an animal or animals, the water cycle. What goes into making the water cycle? That's composition. How does a plant grow from seed all the way to the plant? Or even an experiment. If you walk through the steps of an experiment, or you're using the scientific method, that's all composition in those academic units. So here's the map. I have it here. I'm going to close this out so you can see better. Okay, so you're going to put your Unit 3, your theme, and your grade level right in the center, just like always. Now it spokes out. The first tier are going to be your subjects. Art, drama, language arts, social studies, math, and science. I have a new box for you to put in your title of your activity. You're going to be responsible for the 3 phases of learning: the introduction, processing, this is where you describe your activity, mastery, how are you going to assess that your students have mastered this skill? A test, an oral presentation? Are they going to do a wax museum where each one of them picks a person to pretend they're that person and they tell people about them? You have to do 3 standards for each activity. So once you get this activity, you're processing, describe what they're going to do, then hook that to 3 standards. Find at least 3. Some of you will be able to find even more. I usually can find at least 3. If you're having trouble, contact me. There's 2 new boxes. Cross-curricular application. So think of your math activity and then see if you can find a way to describe, does that math activity complement, overlap, or reflect another subject's activity? So let's say you're doing an experiment in science. Is there a way you could use your math to help reinforce your science? Is there a way you could use math as a timeline, with composition that might go in with your timeline with social studies? If you say you're taking an era and you're plotting important events in that era, maybe you could make math equations, math sentences, using those dates. So that's your cross-curricular application. Name a different subject or activity that this activity relates to, complements, or enhances. Number 2, in this little box, just explain how it relates to this different subject's activity. You could say, we will make story problems using the years and events in our decade from social studies, if that makes sense to you, hopefully. Then, underneath that, you have the compositional element right here. Explain how this activity incorporates or utilizes the concept of composition. If we take the example I just did, You're making word problems. There you go. Word problems always involve composition. How do you construct a word problem? So every single one of them has all of those. Social studies, title of your activity. How are you going to introduce it? Processing is where you describe your activity. Mastering. How will you assess your students have mastered this skill? Use 3 separate standards. They don't all have to be history standards. You may have a language arts standards in with your history. That happens quite often. A lot of the language arts standards can go cross-curricular. And if you have that, where you have your standards that use a history activity is using a language arts, well, there you have your cross-curricular application for this box. In language arts, we are going to be writing about the person we're studying in social studies. There's cross-curricular. And how are you going to use composition in your history? Timelines are very, very, very easy to do for a social studies project. And that also overlaps with drama, because a timeline is basically a plot map. What are all the little events that happened that led up to the American Revolution? What is the setting? Who are the main characters? Do you have main characters that are involved in your era or your event? It's particularly easy if you're studying one person. Thomas Jefferson. Think of his life. What are the major events in his life? Your art, title of your activity. Remember, art has to be color theory or color harmony, or you could choose to use photo composition. Drama has to be plot mapping, and if you use a timeline in history or social studies, then you have your drama element right there. They would be cross-curricular, and I would move the drama, I would just move it. I would move it down next to social studies. Got to type in studies right here. Your music is going to be a garage band something. Now, if you're using your garage band song, you can upload it in here or put a link to your YouTube channel. Or if you're going to use a different kind of garage band activity for this, say you're going to have your students use Billy Joel's song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," and write new lyrics for the Civil War, the American Civil War. You could just discuss that, how you're using the garage band project to reflect your unit theme. Sorry, my dog's barking. But there is your map. I hope you enjoy this unit. It's quite detailed. This is the unit where I'm trying to get you prepared to do the unit all by yourself. Your 4th unit will look just like this. And you'll do the whole thing by yourself. You'll pick a theme, whatever you want, and you'll have all the same boxes. Good luck to you. I look forward to seeing your work.